Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world, and welcome to this evening's session, should I say, with Postgrad Insights. We're joined today by UCL, who are regular visitors of ours, which is great. So, before I hand you over, it is a live session. It is on social media today. It is being streamed. So, if you've got any questions on the social media platforms, please put it on the post itself. If you send us a direct message, we won't receive it, unfortunately. If you are watching on Zoom, please use the chat or the Q&A facility, and we will endeavour to get round to your question as soon as possible. There will be a Q&A session at the end, which will take about 10 to 15 minutes, and that'll be moderated by myself, which I will be back for right away. So if you have any questions, please pop it in the chat. I'll pass you over to Penny and to Vida to introduce themselves, and then I will come back towards the end. Penny, over to you.
Thank you so much. So thank you very much for having us back again. So my name is Penny Kosofos. I work in the student recruitment team here at UCL. So I head up UK and European recruitment, but working very closely with our colleagues who support international recruitment. So we're going out speaking to students about UCL, why you may want to consider studying with us and so forth. Delivery of open days, support in that transition in terms of coming to UCL. And I'm really pleased today. I'm joined by my colleague Vida, who I will allow to introduce herself before we make a start.
Hi everyone, it's good to see you. My name is Vida Koster and I'm a postgraduate admissions officer at UCL.
Thank you, Vida. So today we're going to firstly begin by talking a little bit about UCL. So many of you may be aware of UCL, but for those of you who are perhaps not, why you might want to consider UCL for your postgraduate study. We'll then talk about a little bit more about the application process, what we're looking for, and so forth, which Vida will cover, and then we'll come back to funding your study. So considerations you may need to be making if you're looking for funding opportunities to support your studies. So to begin. So why choose UCL? So I think one of the key things we're extremely proud of about in terms of UCL is our very strong reputation. So we're consistently ranked as one of the world's leading universities. So really strong reputation, and that's across the university, but also in very specific areas. And I think it is important when you're looking at subject areas, do look at that sort of academic standing. So very fortunate at UCL that we have this strong reputation. Also, things like the impact of the research work we do. So we're second in terms of the UK. So the work we produce as a university in terms of our academic staff, our postgraduate students and so forth, really makes a real world impact as well. We have the largest number of citations as well. Our global alumni community as well, that really adds to the benefit of studying at somewhere like UCL and the kind of connections and links you can make. Importantly, for students who are thinking about postgraduate study in terms of their future career progression, we have amazing links with careers and employers, and now allowing you to really explore your options and make the right connections in terms of your future career. But for many students who are perhaps entrepreneurs, who have their own business ideas, again, that's something we strongly support here at UCL. So we do like to talk a little bit about our history. We are very much a university that looks to the future, even more now as we're coming up to our 200-year celebration in 2026. But we are proud of our founding because it has made us very much the university we are today. So we were the first to admit students regardless of class or religion or race when we were founding it in 1826. Importantly, we were the first university to welcome women into higher education. We were also one of the first universities to offer systematic teaching of programs such as engineering, law, just to give a few examples. So we were very groundbreaking at that time, and that's something we believe we continue to do, and something we're extremely proud of. So it's an amazing university with an amazing history, but one that very much looks to the future. So one of the key things we do talk about at UCL is about tackling global issues. And this, you as a graduate student here, you have opportunities to really get involved in some of the research areas that we're doing, where we're really exploring how we can make a difference to real world issues. And one of the benefits of UCL being a multidisciplinary university, we really allow students to come together from across discipline and find real solutions to help these kind of areas as well. So, we have people working around the area of climate crisis, looking at how we can improve the global footprint of the shipping industry, where we're bringing academics from various areas and how we can address that. So there's lots of ways we do that, and lots of ways our students get involved in those kind of projects. As mentioned, we are a multidisciplinary university. So UCL is large. We are the largest university in the UK. We offer a large number of programs across a number of disciplines. So we have 11 faculties, which is home to about 80 different departments, and we offer over 800 postgraduate taught programs in a number of areas. So it's quite difficult to sort of give you an idea of how brilliant many of these programs are, because you can't talk about everything. And I would very much encourage you to look at our website, look at the work our academics are doing, to get a true insight into the kind of programs that we offer and if they really cater to your particular backgrounds and interests. As mentioned before, UCL is multidisciplinary, so we have a lot of programs that have that interdisciplinary element, which really allows you to sort of explore differing subjects and how they come together within one postgraduate taught program. Many of our faculties are world leaders in their field. So, for example, the Bartlett School of Architecture is consistently ranked as a leader in the field of architecture and built environment, the Institute of Education as well. So again, we have world leading departments who again attract world leading academics who in turn will be teaching you. So again, please do explore our website, where you can see a lot more information about all those different programs. Something we're also very proud of is our history of Nobel Prize winners, and this has come from from both academics and alumni students who've studied at UCL, and we've tended to have a Nobel Prize winner from each decade since it began in 1901. Very recently, in the recent prize, we actually had two members of the UCL community offered who were awarded the Nobel laureate. So Demis Hassabis, who studied at UCL, has come back and given lectures at the university, has done amazing work in the area of AI, and is actually has been chair of the artificial intelligence unit at UCL. So this just demonstrates the kind of impact UCL has had, but also the kind of people that you can come into contact with while studying here with us. So many universities talk about sustainability, and this is increasingly important in the current climate. And again, this is that's something that UCL has quite a strong reputation in. It's something we constantly invested in. It's integral to many of our programs as well, how we can address sustainability issues and so forth. You can become part of the One Generation community, which is looking at how we can make that kind of real world difference. In terms of the campus, our buildings, we're ensuring that we are a net carbon institution by 2030. So there's real strides being made to ensure that we are a sustainable university in the current age. So one would expect from a leading university, we would also have cutting edge facilities, and that's something we're very proud that we can offer at UCL. So, there's been a huge amount of investment in the estate of the university in terms of our buildings, our facilities, and ensuring the best for our students. So one of the pictures you can see here at the bottom is our student centre, which has over 100 spaces for students in terms of study space, in individual pods as well, where you can work together in terms of project work, in terms of delivery of support services. This is all located in this building and is one of the most sustainable cities in London at the current moment. But you can also see things like the Artificial Robotics Institute at the UCL East. So it's something we're constantly investing in. And again, depending on your program, when you go to our website, you can clearly see the kind of resources that are available. We have 17 libraries on campus, we have compulsion labs and so forth. So again, always important to look at the kind of facilities available to you on your program. Again, something we really do talk about a great deal at UCL is your future career. We know that's increasingly important. You're looking to invest a great deal of money to ensure that you know that that investment is beneficial to you. So we have an amazing careers team who work with employers across the sector, not only in the UK, but worldwide as well, giving our students those kind of opportunities. Our students have one of the top earning salaries in the UK after graduating as well, so your earning potential can be higher. So we very much encourage students make the most of those career services, and that sits within a central team, but many departments as well will have their own career support and advisors who are there to guide you in perhaps a very specialist area, perhaps in engineering, perhaps in finance, in the arts and so forth, to ensure that you have those kind of opportunities. And as again, one would expect, our students go on to work with a huge variety of employers. And again, you can get more detailed information by going on the website to see career progression for graduates from a particular degree. And that will really vary, again, because of the scope of our programs at UCL that we offer here. Again, I would just tend to encourage students as much as possible to sort of engage in our career support as much as you can when you join us, to really get the most out of those kind of opportunities available to you. But at UCL, we're not just about supporting students who are looking to join a company, a firm, or so forth. We are very much someone who appreciates that students do have their own business ideas, entrepreneurs, and our enterprise and innovation scheme massively supports students to enable them to do that. So this can be done in a variety of ways. We have entrepreneurship hub based at King's Cross, which is a few minutes walk from UCL. You can get funding, mentorship, and so forth. And many of our students have gone on to successfully form companies whilst at UCL, which they've grown and developed whilst studying with us. And again, this is just one example here where two master's students while studying met here, developed a wearable solution to enable to monitor patients. So again, you can really look and see on our website the kind of amazing work our enterprise scheme has done to support students with their own business models. Again, if many of you have not been to London, we are very much in the heart of London. So UCL has three main campuses, what we'd probably say. So this is the original campus in 1826, right in the heart of London. We're very fortunate, closely located to various transport links, close to the British Museum, the British Library. Again, amazing resources depending on what areas of you study, not far from the financial district and the legal district as well. So again, can be massive in terms of your areas of study. More recently, we opened our East Campus, and this is very much, there's been a huge investment by the British government in terms of in the area in East London. So this is very much an innovation and cultural hub. And UCL, along with others like the BBC, the V&A, University of Arts London, are based there as well. So a number of our really innovative interdisciplinary programs can be based there and very easily accessible from UCL. And finally, a lot of our management, more business programs are based in Canary Wharf, again, in the financial district of London, which again is massive in terms of supporting you in your career progression once you graduate. In terms of accommodation, so we offer a variety of accommodation. So that can be through the university. We're also part of the University of London, which is a federation, which also offers accommodation, and also private providers as well. We have agreements where you can get favourable rent prices basically through those agreements as well. So the accommodation can really vary. We have safe catered halls, self-catered. We have rooms with ensuite facilities, others where you're sharing. So again, price can really different. And again, our website can give you a clear idea of what's available and the price band that would sit in. The majority of our accommodation is easily accessible from the university. So from Bloomsbury, for example, 75% of the accommodation will be within 15 minutes walk. At places at UCL East, it's within the buildings basically as well, so easily accessible as well. One of the good things about London, it's a very easy city to get around. If you do need to commute, you get 30% off travel as well, so that makes a huge difference. And again, in order to be prioritised for accommodation, you need to ensure you meet the various deadlines that we schedule, usually in late June for graduate students, and that you've been made and accepted your offer from us to be considered for accommodation. And again, the website is there if you would like further information. So that's where I've spoken briefly about UCL. As I said, I would encourage people to go to the website, but we're now going to focus a little bit more about applying for and funding your studies at UCL. So as I mentioned, Vida has joined us from the admissions team, so she's going to give you that overview of applying, what we're looking for in an application. So Vida, if you're ready, I will hand over to you and you let me know when you want me to move on.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Penny. So great. Hopefully now you're all feeling even more motivated to join UCL. So I'll be briefly walking you over or through our application process. So Penny, if you wouldn't mind sharing the next slide. Okay, perfect. So I thought before I jump into the application process, I'd give you a little brief overview of our graduate admissions office. So we're a central team that manages all applications for postgraduate taught and research study. And we're also responsible for things like fee status assessment, issuing CAS to our international students, deposits, and so much more. We're quite a busy team. So in the past year, we processed nearly 90,000 applications. So we do get quite a lot of applications in each application cycle, but we do have a dedicated admissions inquiry center team as well, who are there, ready to answer any questions you might have. So if you ever need to get in touch with us, please do use our contact form, which is accessible through our website, or give us a call as well, and we'd be happy to help you with any questions you might have. And then I also wanted to just mention that in our team, we do tend to be split by faculty. So your application will be processed by somebody who has a really good understanding of the programs and what is required by the specific faculty. From their application. So we tend to kind of specialize. And I currently sit in a team that handles applications for the School of Life and Medical Sciences, but we then have teams that handle engineering applications, law, management, etc. Okay, so perfect. So that's just a brief overview. So we're going to move on now to submitting an application. Thank you. So firstly, our applications are now open. They open in October each year. However, not every application or not every program will have the same deadline. So please do make sure to check the prospectus page for all of our programs. And this is a resource that I will be sort of mentioning throughout my talk here today with you, because it's such a useful source of information on all of our programs, but the deadlines for our programs will vary, and they tend to vary by depending on whether you require a visa. So do make sure to check if you're interested in applying that you make sure you know what the deadline is. Another thing to mention is that our decisions tend to go out on a rolling basis, meaning that we are already in the process of making offers. So we've already made decisions on hundreds, if not thousands, of applications in this application cycle. So it's always a good idea to apply as early as you can. Don't rush. I'm not encouraging you to rush an application, because I know it takes time to write a really good application, but just make sure that you're applying as early as you can, just to give yourself enough time to be considered and to then prepare to join us should you be given an offer later on. Another thing to mention is that we will only process completed applications. Now, complete applications are those that have the necessary references and where you have paid the application fee, if there is one for the program. Now, most of our programs will require one reference, but that can vary. It might be one or two references. And we have a preference for academic references from someone who has taught you at degree level. However, we are quite a diverse community, so we have a lot of students joining us who have been out of education for a while. And if that's your situation, don't worry if you can no longer access an academic reference, because professors can change jobs, they can move institutions. So if you have been out of higher education for 4 years or more, we can also consider a professional reference as well for you. And I believe, yes, so that's everything for me on this slide. So I can move on to the next bit, which is the application content. So what do you need to submit to us as part of your application? Well, the first thing is we require degree documents of at least 1 degree level qualification. It's important to note here that we have a lot of applicants who are still studying, which means they're not going to have that final degree certificate and transcript, and that's completely fine. So what we would require then is interim degree documents. So these would be documents that show your study to date, and most institutions, as you know, from my experience, can provide an interim transcript confirming your modules and the results you've obtained so far, even if you have not been awarded a degree. Make sure that the degree documents are both in the original language and translated officially into English, either by a certified translator or by your institution. We do need that original language document as well, because sometimes we might translate something as a bachelor's in English, but in the original it's something slightly different, and then the requirements might be slightly different depending on the exact degree type. I'm thinking specifically of South American qualifications, but there may be others. So make sure to give us both the original and the English translation. And then the next bit is the CV, which is optional. So you're not sort of obligated to provide a CV to us, but it is quite useful because it gives us an overview of any work experience you have, and especially if that's in the industry you're hoping to join after your postgraduate study, it can help, but it's not technically a requirement of the application. So if you don't submit it, it's not going to be a detriment to your application, but it can be quite helpful. And then some of our programs will have additional requirements, additional documents you need to provide, such as a portfolio for some of our art programs. Some of our programs will require a dissertation summary, etc. If an additional document is ever required for a program, that will be very clearly mentioned in the next steps section of the prospectus page for that program. So it's not going to come as a surprise that we need additional documents. Another thing I would note is that should you forget to submit a document, or we require further information for whatever reason, we can always request this from you and give you additional time to submit this. So, you know, we wouldn't outright reject you if you, for example, forget to attach a transcript, but this, of course, would cause delays to the application, so it's always best to submit everything on time and in one go so we can get to processing your application more quickly. And another thing I would say is, because we get this question quite a lot, we don't require evidence of English at the point of application. So we can always request this later. So if you don't currently have an English language test, that's perfectly fine. You can still apply to us with just the academic degree documents and, of course, the personal statement. And so I guess this now brings us to the personal statement, which is always a hot topic for our applicants in terms of what we look for. So the first thing I would say is we take quite a holistic approach. So, you know, the personal statement is really there for you to introduce yourself to us and explain your motivations for studying at UCL and why you're interested in the program. So the first sort of few questions that you would be looking to answer would be, why are you applying to the program that you're applying for? Why are you applying to UCL? So what is it that you think studying at UCL would bring to you in terms of your education, your career, and what your specific academic interests and experience are that have motivated you to apply to us for this specific program. And then you would also be looking to talk a bit about any relevant work or voluntary experience you've done in this area, or any kind of relevant university assignments you've undertaken that help showcase the interest in the subject matter that is relevant to the program that you're applying to. And then we would also usually expect applicants to reflect on their career aspirations as well. So we don't necessarily expect you to have a super detailed 5-year career plan of exactly what you're going to do after graduating, but we would like to see that you've thought through how the program will help you in your career, how it helps, so how it sort of builds on your existing experience that you've had so far, and then how it's going to help prepare you for the career that you're hoping to get into. And something that I hope will be reassuring is that we always look for reasons to accept someone rather than reject them. So we're always looking at those really kind of good points in your application that would help us sort of support your application and hopefully make an offer to you. So we're really just looking to get a sense of who you are and what your interests are and why you're passionate about the subject that you're applying to and UCL. So we're not looking to catch anyone out. We're just looking for those sort of positives and what you bring. So think of a personal statement as really just a way to showcase all the best parts of your academic journey so far and your passion for the subject that you're applying for. And I think that's about it on this slide. So if we could move on to the next one. Right, so I briefly just wanted to mention a few things that you might want to consider when applying. So firstly, the prospectus page is making a comeback here on this slide as well. So really useful. It gives you a list of all of our programs and their requirements, as well as contact details for the department as well, if you'd like to get in touch with them, and all the information on the requirements, and etc. The department website, so whichever department is administering the program that you're applying to, they will have their own website. And that's really useful if you want to look into the research they're doing. We heard earlier, we have some really cutting edge research happening at UCL, and it's always good to refer to the current work of the department in your personal statement to show that you've really kind of considered the department that you would be joining on your program. So that's definitely a useful resource. And then we have a number of frequently asked question pages, depending on the stage you are in your journey with us. So whether you're just considering applying or you're already an applicant, or hopefully if you're an offer holder as well, ready to enroll with us, we have dedicated frequently asked questions pages for you. So those are definitely useful to peruse as well if you have any questions. And then one thing that I would also mention here is that for our international students, you might, of course, need a visa and an ATAS certificate to study at UCL. And I would really strongly encourage you to look into this early on. Now, if an ATAS is required for your program, this will be very clearly outlined in your offer letter, so it's not going to come as a surprise. However, some of our programs did, some of our applicants, did experience some delays with ATAS in the previous application cycle. So we always encourage students to look into this early and apply as early as they can, just to avoid those knock-on delays later in the summer and kind of avoid the stress of that basically later on. And then on the next slide as well, I'm just going to show you a brief screenshot of the UCL portal. So this is Portico. This is where you would be logging into to view your application once it's submitted. And this is a really useful page because it helps you track your application. So it will tell you the stage of your application, whether it's under review with the department or whether a decision has been made. So that's going to be in Portico. It's also going to allow you to update your referees as well. So if you ever want to replace a referee or send them a reminder email to provide a reference, that can be done through Portico. It's going to allow you to see your offer, hopefully, and any requirements of that offer as well as provide additional documents if those are required. So all of the information that you would ever really need to know is going to be here in Portico for you. So it's a really good idea once you've applied, once you've submitted your application, to log into there and just sort of peruse the different tabs and kind of find your way around and make sure that you're familiar with the system. So that's that on that. And then if we could move on to the next slide now, because I would just briefly like to chat through how the application sort of goes through the system and what happens once you've submitted it. So first of all, once an application is complete, meaning it has a reference and the application fee has been paid, we would do an initial assessment against different criteria for a program, look at your supporting statements, your transcript, etc. And then in some cases, applications do go to academic departments as well for a review. That's not, if you see that that's happened to your application, that's not an issue. It's just some programs have a slightly different process for applications. We have hundreds of programs, so there's quite a lot of variety there in how we process them. But then in terms of receiving a decision and kind of timelines for that, we don't really give a specific date. However, we do say roughly it's going to be 8 to 10 weeks from the point that your application is complete on the system, just because we receive such a high volume of applications. We are working through them as quickly as we can, but it just takes a little bit of time sometimes. So it might be a little less time, it might be a little longer depending on the program. And then there will be also a deadline to accept your offer as well. That's going to be in the offer letter. So very clearly communicated to you and will not come as a surprise. And then there will also be a separate deadline if there's a deposit for your program, which there may or may not be, but that's also going to be in the offer letter as well. Usually it's about 6 weeks from the offer, but do check the offer letter. And then in terms of meeting conditions of your offer, there isn't really a specific date for that, but it has to happen before the program starts, essentially. So if, especially if you're a visa holder, we always encourage students to meet the conditions of their offer as soon as they can, after they obtain all the documents they need to meet the requirement. And that's for a lot of our applicants usually in the summer. And we encourage you to do that as quickly or as soon as you're able to, just because we then need to issue a CAS for your visa and you have to enroll. Even if you don't require a visa, you need to source accommodation. So if you could sort of look to do that early on in the summer, that would be fantastic. But if you ever have any questions or concerns, you can always contact us and we'll do our absolute best to help. So if you need a deposit exemption due to funding, or if you're experiencing delays in getting your final degree documents, or anything else that you might have a question about, please do get in touch with us and we would be very happy to help you. So that's it for me. I'll hand over to Penny again for
Okay.
funding.
Thank you, Vida. So we need to think about finances when considering studying at UCL or any UK university or worldwide, actually. So a number of things that you need to take into account is the fees. So that's a significant cost, and it will vary depending on the program. And of course, it will vary depending on your fee status. So for home students, that can vary from anything from £13,500 going up to about 17,000. And for international, so students classified as overseas, fee rate, that will be anything from about 29,000 per year going up to about 65,000 a year. Again, really important when you're looking at the prospectus pages, it will clearly tell you what the fees are for that program, and if it's for UK and for overseas, so you have a very clear idea of the financial commitment that you will be making. Beyond the fees, you need to think about living costs, so accommodation, food. You can't live on air and water alone in London, so you do need to take that into account. Now, individual budgets can really vary depending on individuals, but realistically, you need to be looking at in the region of about to cover accommodation and living costs around £18,000 per year. There are students who work on tighter budgets than that, and there are others who may spend more. So it is a very individual thing. And again, depending on some programs where you may need additional materials and so forth, that can vary as well. our website gives some really good guidance about living costs, so the kind of things you need to consider. So this may then bring you around to looking and exploring funding opportunities. So at UCL, we do offer a number of scholarships, but the reality is that we cannot fund every student that would like to and is able to, who has academically able to study at UCL. Some of those scholarships may be partial towards your tuition fee, so may not cover everything. So there may be a number of students who will have to explore jigsaw funding, which is not uncommon. So you can actually apply for various funding at UCL externally as well, to allow you to sort of cover as much of the costs as possible. So student UCL, and I'll talk a little bit more about our own funding opportunities, but we do work in partnership with a number of bodies overseas, for example. So the Chevening Scholarship, the Fulbright Scholarship as well, where students get a discounted fee reduction if they're awarded those, but also with other countries as well. So for example, Colfuturo in Colombia, DARD in Germany. Again, there's a full listing on our website where you can sort of look at the kind of scholarship funding partnerships that we have that you can apply to be considered to. So that's one option. Again, there's many students, if you're UK based, you'll be applying for a student loan, and we have some really good guidance on the website about applying for a student loan to fund your studies, and that money will come directly to you. It works slightly differently than those who've had a student loan for undergraduate studies. So again, definitely worth exploring. We also work with overseas governments in terms of the US loan system, the Canadian loan system as well, if that's how you're looking to fund your studies. So there's lots of things that you can explore. Many students may, beyond funding scholarships, will work part-time, have savings in terms of their studies, contribution from family and so forth. So it's for postgraduate tour, it's not common that you will get one scholarship that will cover all your tuition fees and all your living costs. So again, as Vida said, when applying to UCL generally, we would encourage you to start researching, exploring your options as early as possible. That is something that is really important in terms of funding. The sooner you have an idea what you're eligible for will give you a better idea of when you need to prepare things, at what point do you need to have a decision. Many of the scholarships at UCL, for example, we won't be able to consider you unless you've been made an offer. So again, that's why it can be really important to ensure you make an early application as well. So our website has extensive information. We have a scholarship finder as well that can help you look and research scholarships in terms of your program of study, what country you're from, and what you would be eligible for. So it's quite a straightforward process. So once you have access to the UCL portal, that's where all the funding and scholarships you're eligible, you can apply for. So it will be one application process, and that will allow you to be considered for various scholarships. So at UCL, the majority of our scholarships are means tested. There are some exceptions, so that we have a pool of centrally funded scholarships that we have our funding team overseas, monitors and supports, but then we may have departmental specific scholarships as well. So it's really important that you explore as many options as possible, and they may be more on the basis of academic merit, but centrally they are very much means tested. So we may be looking for you to submit financial documentation, proof of your household income and so forth, to ensure that we have the relevant information to be able to make a decision on whether we can consider you and shortlist you for one of our scholarships. So some of our flagship schemes at UCL, and like I said, this will really vary depending on how you're classified in terms of fee status, but in terms of the UCL for UK home students is probably our master's bursary, which we have around 200 awards given in a given year for £10,000 each, and they're given on the basis of financial need. And in terms of for international students, we have the Global Scholarship, and we have up to 85 scholarships, which are £15,000 towards your fees. But like I said, there are a majority of different scholarship you can apply to, and that can vary, like I said, depending on your country of domicile, what program you're applying to. So I would very much encourage you to explore our scholarship finder for further information about what you could be considered for. But really important that if you are looking at scholarships, it's important you make your application for the program at UCL as early as possible to ensure that you can meet the deadlines for many of these scholarships. So they can vary. They're starting from about April going into June, but it is important that you, by that deadline, you have been made an offer to study at UCL, basically. So in terms of being able, our website is the best place to go for any further information. There's depending on the program of study, you can get a really clear idea of the kind of modules you'll be taught, the kind of research work being done, career opportunities as well, modes of study. So some of our programs may be full-time or part-time. If you're a UK, that would be an UK-based student, that would be an option for you. Fees and so forth. In terms of the scholarships and the funding, there's a wealth of information there that you can access to find out what you would be eligible to apply for. So I think on that note, we have finished, I think a little bit earlier than anticipated, but hopefully that gives more than enough time for any questions that may have come through.
It does. Thank you, Penny and Vida as well. Really appreciate it. I'm sure everyone can agree that's watching. If we can just leave that screen there, Penny, for the
Yep,
time being,
that's
just
fine.
let students come on up. But I'm sure everybody watching can fully appreciate just how prestigious University UCL is, and if you have the opportunity to study there, or even visit, to be fair, I've visited once, and you'll find yourself kind of starstruck because it's such a great university. What I want to talk about to begin with is the use of AI. I know it's kind of a bugbear in the industry that a lot of people are now using personal statements generated by the specific AI platforms. We know which ones there are. How much would you emphasize to students not to perhaps use it and guide them, but not to allow it to take over, because it is a very competitive university. Many students would love to get in and admit with the university, and you need to be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, without kind of going into our processes for fraud detection and things like that, I would definitely encourage people to. I personally would discourage you from using AI at all. I know you mentioned that it can be used as a guide, and technically that's true, but an AI can't really understand your motivations for a program. It can't understand your background. It can't understand your opinions, really. And one thing to note about UCL is that our programs are highly rigorous academically. So you are going to need to have those communication skills both in writing and personally to be able to successfully complete programs at UCL. So the personal statement, I understand it's a struggle because I remember being a postgraduate applicant and, poring over every sentence. So I understand it's a really stressful thing to go through to write a personal statement, but ultimately, you know yourself best. An AI can't really understand your motivations as well as you can. And as difficult as it is, please rest assured that we're not really looking for perfection. We are just really looking for that passion and that interest that you have in UCL and the subject that you've decided to study. And really, that should shine through in a personal statement. I've read at this point thousands, and you can tell when someone has really put an effort into explaining their experience and explaining why they're interested in UCL, whereas, compared to someone who might provide a generic response and a generic statement. So a difference can definitely be noticed, and our preference is always for applicants who kind of write the
Yeah.
personal statement themselves.
And no doubt that you will buy into who they are rather than not necessarily always what they know, because obviously you're looking for a certain type of person. So please take note, anyone watching, we can't stop you from using it, but it is obvious
Yeah.
if you are using it. I want to keep on the theme of the application stage because there'll be plenty of people wanting to apply the next steps and what happens. What happens to a student if their English language isn't quite up to the requirement? Do you offer alternatives? Do you offer courses or programs to get them up to scratch, so that they don't feel like they've been pushed away, but you are there to help?
Absolutely. So there's a few options there. So firstly, you don't need English at the point of applying, but let's say that you are at the point where you need to provide English, which is usually at offer stage. There's a few options. So we have a pre-sessional English course that's available to our applicants. Now, obviously, there's a limited number of spaces on that because it is in person in London, but that is definitely an option where you would come to our Center for, it's called CLE. It's our Center for Language Learning, and they run the pre-sessional English course that you can have a look at. But in terms of other options, we would not reject based on English, meaning that you can always retake the test. So even if, let's say, your first IELTS doesn't quite meet the requirement, you can take another IELTS, or you can take a different type of test. But in terms of English preparatory courses, the only one that I can think of off the top of my head is the pre-sessional. But maybe Penny, do you have any other ones you can think
Yes,
of?
so our pre-sessionals, that one's immersive. It will, depending on level, it could be 2 weeks up to 6 weeks and so forth. So it will vary. In terms of recognition of other pre-sessional school courses at other universities, we wouldn't commonly accept those. But as Vida said, students would have the opportunity to
Yeah.
retake tests. We would encourage as much as possible, especially for students who are based overseas. If you're, get your English level work to that English level in country, because it is an extra cost. Our pre-sessional course is amazing, but that is an additional cost that you do need to think about. And those that, you can do as many tests. Again, you need to think about the cost, but in order to meet the English language requirement for the program. So for us, we're very much making a decision on the academic merit. As Vida said, we won't be rejecting on English. So if you fail to get the score on first occasion, second occasion, third occasion, it's fine, basically.
Yeah, and just to note on that is, especially for international students needing a visa, there is a UK government requirement for English level. So it's not just us requiring English. You will need to showcase it as part of the visa application as well. But also on that note, most test providers will have free online resources or resources that come when you pay for the test that prep you to pass that specific test. So please do look into that as well.
And I think I would say as well, we need to be sure that you have that necessary level of English attainment, and you will see it will vary depending on which program you're applying to, and that is to ensure that you have the English ability, both written, spoken, to really be able to get the most out of your studies with us. So we're not doing it because we just try to put more obstacles. It is very important that those students have that English level so they really can get the most. You're investing a huge amount of money. So to ensure that you can, engage in those conversations that happen with the academics, your peers and so forth. So it is a very important thing to ensure that you meet those levels of English. And again, our English level requirements will vary. So when you look at the prospectus page, it will clearly tell you what level is required for each given program.
Excellent. And one thing I want to pick up on, you mentioned money then, and I want to take you back to the very start of the presentation that you guys provided, where you talked about the location and the culture and everything else to do with UCL. One of the things people will pick up on, and whenever we do a webinar-based thing within London, is how expensive it can be to live within London. However, there are a lot of students that will live on the outskirts of London, and because of the infrastructure links, it does allow you to actually travel in and actually probably be at the UCL campus within half an hour, whereas if you live closer, it'd probably take you longer.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So I live just outside of London. Very few people who work in London live in the centre of London, and my commute into work I know can be shorter than other people who live more centrally. So it's really easy. As mentioned, students, you get 30% off all travel, so that really keeps costs down. We're really fortunate at UCL, and that's at Bloomsbury, at near Canary Wharf, at East. Transport links are brilliant. So all the major underground buses as well. London is a great city to cycle in as well. It's very easy. There's loads of places on our campuses where you can leave your bike, and it's a very easy city to navigate. We do occasionally have nice weather. So again, a lot of people walk. That's not unheard of, but it's not uncommon for people to sort of live slightly further out into Greater London and just commute in. It's really not difficult at all. And you just again, where if you're maybe living closer to campus between a lecture or a seminar or a tutorial group, you may opt to go back to your into your halls of residence. If you're living slightly further afield, there's great study spaces across the campus. You can go into one of the 17 libraries, which are all, amazing. Lots of great coffee shops and so forth with internet access. So you can sort of work around it. So you're not traveling back and forth in quite the same way.
Yeah, and ultimately, there's more students in London than any other English-speaking country in the world anywhere. So
Yeah.
there's a huge cohort of students. You're not alone.
Yes.
It can be daunting. It can be a really significant moment in your career and in your life to up sticks from where you're from and to go to the hustle and bustle of London. Let's face it. But it is rewarding. There are so many cultures there, aren't there? And so many different things to do as an international student. It's almost a home from home, no matter where you are, and that's important, right?
Yeah, and UCL is a very international university. So about half of our student body come from outside of the UK. We have about 150 nationalities represented. They're on the website if I've misremembered that. And we very much represent that international profile of London itself. Um, in terms of London caters for everyone, wherever you're from. If you're, you find these little corners of Latin America, Asia, and so forth. In terms of, that network of students as well. So UCL, the Bloomsbury campus is in an area known as the Knowledge Quarter of London. Lots of other universities there as well. So lots of other students. So, you have that opportunity. You're not only meeting with students from UCL, but other places as well. And, it, it, the fact is London is consistently ranked as the top um, city for students and has done so for the last 4 or 5 years, I believe, because it offers so much basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, one thing
absolutely.
I
Vida, do
was
you want to elaborate further on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in terms of finding your community in London, it can even be overwhelming because there's so much choice. But one thing I always recommend to students, and that I know from personal experience, is that you should definitely consider joining a student society. We have a wonderful student union. We have many, dozens and dozens of student societies, including some nationality specific ones, and that can be a really helpful way to feel more like part of the UCL community and get to meet some people outside of your course as well and help, make you feel more at home. So definitely have a look at our student union as well, because there's a lot of different choices out there.
Absolutely. And I do want to finish up. There's time for just kind of one more point, I think. Let's talk about the career opportunities, because ultimately we're all students to go on to enhance our studies and enhance our career opportunities. Being in the heart of London, being the various campuses you've got and the name that you are, presumably you've got extremely strong connections to not just city partners, but partners all over the globe.
Yeah, no, totally. So, again, London very much is the heart of everything. So, finance, legal, politics, the arts, journalism. There's so much going on in London. And we really utilize that at UCL. So we work very closely with businesses in various sectors in terms of delivery of our programs, but also ensuring our students have those kind of links and contacts to be able to progress in those careers. And again, that goes beyond London as well, nationally in terms of the UK, but also globally as well. And again, our alumni network is massively engaged. So, you could be a UK student who's looking to relocate out to Hong Kong or Singapore, as an example. There's whole networks there that can support you in terms of career. And again, our graduates are very fortunate. UCL has this really strong reputation. It's recognized worldwide. Employers actively seek out our graduates. So it is not uncommon to see employers, our careers team run career events on campus where you know, they are actively there seeking out UCL students because they know the caliber and the qualities that they can bring to their own businesses and companies, basically. So again, I think it's important to stress at UCL that our career service offers amazing opportunities, but it's for students to utilize them as much as possible. We don't force anyone to, there's lots of different support services out there at UCL. We'll ensure that you're aware of all those support services, and it's just for those individuals to make the most of them and utilize them as much as possible whilst they're with us. And of course, things like the career service, you have access once you've graduated as well. So
Yeah.
it doesn't stop once you've graduated.
I think it goes back to what you said initially. Studying is expensive. It is
Yeah,
expensive, no matter where you are, what you do, no matter what city you're in. And it's down to that individual to utilize all the opportunities available to them.
yeah.
So I think that's a great note to finish on. Just finally, just before we wrap up, the intake dates will vary, no doubt, for different programs and courses. But one of your main intake dates, one of the next ones coming up, are you looking at September 25 now?
Yes,
Yes.
so we have very, very few programs at postgraduate courses, especially that will not that they have an intake at any other point. So it's
Yeah.
usually always in September. Again, that would be clearly specified on our website. So as Vida said, so we are considering applications now for September 2025. Had to have a think about that, get my years muddled. Um, Deadlines for some of those programs, depending again for home or overseas, may vary. So please be aware of those deadlines. But yeah, our next intake point will be the coming September.
Superb. Thank you very much. Vida, Penny, thank you for your time. Always a pleasure catching up with you both. We look forward to seeing you again, hopefully at some point in 2025. If not, scary to mention, 2026. But anyone that is watching that has any more questions, any concerns, any issues relating this webinar, please email webinars@postgradsolutions.com or directly to UCL. See the QR code on the screen, and that will take you straight through to their website for more info. But for now, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.